Welcome back to my channel for another pinecone video, and hope you are not bored me making pinecone projects because I absolutely love them. It is just so incredible seeing such a simple piece of material turning into an artistic creation by adding some resin and colors and obviously a little bit of a creativity, and you can make some stunning projects. So let's get to it. I mixed up some deep pour epoxy resin and I decided to go with red and green colors this time. I haven't used this color combo in the same project before, so I'm curious to see what the outcome will look like. Once the resin was well mixed, I let it to sit for a couple of hours just to start the chemical reaction, so the temperature in the resin started to rise, and when it reached around 35 Celsius, then I started to make my pour. This will reduce the colors to blend and form one single color, and hopefully once all casted in resin we will see some sort of color separation, and we'll see both the red and green coming back in our casting. Then goes into the pressure pot to cure, which helps with air bubbles and does not help with the actual curing process. And a few days later it was demolded and it came out exactly how I wanted. I can clearly see the green and red coming back in the same pour, so this experiment was successful again. And then with a bit of a transition, we are in the new workshop. As I said before, I have so many half-finished projects which was filmed in the old workshop and then will be finished in the new one, like this project. Started rough shaping with my negative rake carbide bits. It works extremely well on epoxy resin. Once the rough shaping is done, I like to apply a little bit of an alcohol, and it just reveals how the colors will come back once it's all nicely polished up. And just look at that, stunning. Sometimes I have absolutely no plan for a project, like this time. I'm just rough shaping this pinecone blank into a vase, and I'm kind of making up the actual final shape as I go along with the piece, and looking at how the pinecone is kind of revealing once I'm carving off some of the resin. And I also like to experiment with different shapes rather than going some of the more uniform shapes for a vase. Here just marking off the bottom end for the project, and also when it comes to sanding, it's nice to have that little groove at the bottom so I can sand the piece all the way down to the very bottom. And the finishing touches with a negative rake chisel. Then going in with a Forster bit to cover out the inner part. And when it comes to a Forstner bit, a nice, good quality, sharp bit goes a very long way. I have been using this drill bit for probably 1 year and used it frequently, and I haven't sharpened it at all, and it still cuts resin like a dream. Covering the inside of any piece isn't the most exciting part, since you can't really see much, neither do I, so I will keep it rather brief. After a few passes I will be checking the overall wall thickness, and this little tool makes a brilliant support to identify how thick the wall is along the vase. And you may see some smoke coming out of this project, and it's nothing to be concerned of. That's purely down to the outside temperature in the workshop is around 10 degrees Celsius, so it's a rather chilly workshop at the moment. And obviously, as I'm doing the carving, the internal temperature of the vase is rather warm or hottish, and just because of the higher temperature difference, it just exaggerates the effect, but nothing to worry about. And this is my SanderStick Pro 2000, which is a DIY sandpaper basically taped onto a piece of cut, and it helps me to get into some narrower hollow piece. And I guess sooner or later it is time to change the sandpaper on this stick. So when it comes to finishes, I like to switch between 3 different types of finishes which I normally use for a project, and one of them is a simple epoxy clear coat resin, which is fairly easy to carry out. However, it has its pros and cons. The second one I sometimes spray with spray lacquer. Or the third one, which is probably the most time consuming, however, it's probably the easiest to carry out with the less of the risk something to go wrong, and this is to send it all the way up to a high grit, which is in this case will be 3000 grits, and thereafter give a good old polish and buff to remove all the fine marks to give a very high gloss finish. As I said, each of the finishes has its own pros and cons, which I try to kind of summarize in different videos. This time I choose to sand all the way to a higher grit, since the actual piece had no issues with holes or voids, so it was fairly easy to sand all the way up to high grit and then just give a good polish. So now after it's all sanded and removed from the lathe, I will just do my branding hole, and then I will go over to my buffing wheels and I will give a good buff and polish, which will remove all the sanding marks and leave with an absolutely mirror glass finish. And the tape was only used for some protection in case I drop it, or in case a tool touches the actual finished piece. It hopefully will provide some sort of protection. And you can't really see on the camera, but there are still some very fine marks left on the piece, so this 3-stage buffing wheel system will remove all those fine scratches. So hope you enjoyed this week's project video. It was a quick project because I'm working on some big pieces and still obviously building my workshop, so I needed some time to focus on other parts of the workshop to allow some new big machineries to come over the coming weeks, which is well exciting. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and this project is also available on my website, link in the description.